Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon at the Zettabyte Zoom session. Today's topic is going to be about new sales tools for the new customer behavior. I think that most of us will concur, agree, and support that the world that most of us grew up in has changed, not singularly, but in a magnified way, in ways that when we were younger, or certainly as we were growing up, we could not even fathom. And as such, that has brought new challenges, new opportunities, but it has also brought a new sense of urgency for us. And on behalf of the entire Zettabyte team and myself, we would like to address these. And today, we are going to have 5 speakers with a key guest speaker, and that will be Dexter Ang, who I will introduce more closely and in detail later on. But I wanted to share that as a younger man, there was a book that I read, and it was called Future Shock by Alvin Toffler. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but sadly, this gentleman has passed away, I think quite recently. But what he wrote about, it was very hard to imagine. And yet now, today, in this moment, we are actually living through it. So a bit of a couple of housekeeping points, if you don't mind. If you'd all be kind enough, because I know sometimes we may have the cat, or we've got the coffee, or we've got something going on in the background, just so that it does not distract the speaker, would you all be kind enough, I see most of you have, to place your mute button on. However, if there is a burning question that you wish to bring up, we do have the chat box, and the chat box, you can type in your question that you like. So after the speakers will complete their session, we will go right through and we will have a Q&A, and that's when we will address your questions. Now, I do want to assure you, the speakers, although they're number 5, they're very fast-paced, exciting, brief, succinct, and I'm sure that you will take away, and we look forward to learning from questions so that we can make it a joint and combined afternoon, one of information. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I would like to introduce the head of our IT. Sorry, my name is Dr. Clinton Lee, and for my sins, I am the CEO of Zettabyte 175. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you the head of our IT, Mr. Paul Drummond. So let's give a wave, if you don't mind, with either physically or with that. And please, Sir Paul.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lee, and I will attempt to live up to that introduction. I'd like to thank everybody for attending our event today. I'm Paul, and I've been involved in the website development industry for over 20 years. I don't think it's an understatement or much of an understatement to say that I've seen a huge amount of change over that time. And it really is true that to say that probably over that period of time, really the only constant is change. It can be challenging to keep up, but today I'm going to share with you the top 5 ways that you can improve your website and maximize customer engagement. So I'm going to share my screen with you here now. Now, why should you care? Most of your customers and potential customers are online, and the numbers are still increasing. There are over 1.8 billion websites, and 91% of users visit online stores. What's more, your impression of a business and how they connect with their target demographic are more than ever established through their online presence. How much information is online? It's been estimated that by 2025, the amount of information available online will exceed 175 zettabytes, hence name of the company. It's a pretty huge number. Most people are not really familiar with how big a zettabyte really is. A zettabyte is 10 with 21 zeros after it. Now that's a big number. To put it in context, or to put it another way, a zettabyte is equal to 1 trillion gigabytes. So it's essential that in the world today that we be prepared and have a plan for the future. Now, I'll go through these 5 points in a reverse order. Attention to detail in your strategy can pay pretty huge dividends. Many small changes that you make to your site, to your online presence, can add up to a huge improvement and enhance visitor experience. For example, in just a small detail, but all phone numbers should be clickable. And, you know, or you should ensure that's the case throughout the whole site. If a user happens to be browsing your site on a mobile device, that means that they can just click and then dial the number. The space at the top of your website is always what visitors will see first. So you must ensure that you're using this area in the most beneficial way possible. You should have in that space information on products, services, announcements, or pretty much whatever you want people to see first. Sliders can be an efficient way of presenting information on different subjects. You can transition to different slides, and it's just a space efficient way of presenting that information. When it comes to website development and website design, less is more. A layout that's simple and intuitive will look cleaner, and it will avoid confusion on the part of your visitors. The more information you add, the more details and different elements that you add to your homepage and to your site as a whole, the more cluttered it will appear unless it's extremely well organized. Ensure that you're getting across a consistent message. Think and have a strategy and a plan for how you want visitors to move through your site, how you want to funnel them through until they get to the point where they can either make an order or contact you. There should never on your site at any point be a dead end. You should utilize all of your online properties. That includes social media with your website as the hub. Look at what your competitors are doing, but make sure that you do develop your own unique brand, voice, and style, and find out what appeals most to your viewers. Make sure that's what they see. You should be willing to spend some capital, just as you would for print advertising. Your online presence is always going to be more versatile and flexible than pretty much any other means of reaching new customers or reaching out to existing customers. And with that, I would like to hand you back to our esteemed moderator, Dr. Lee.
Well, thank you very much for that, Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, what you have just heard, I would define as the hand-to-hand combat that most entrepreneurs have to deal with. But what it does, it gives you that uniqueness, and it gives the finer points that most people take for granted, and they don't place it within their strategy. Now, as you all know, any business has many different facets. It's like a hand. And today we started off with Paul on IT. Now, in the old days, certainly the days of where there was more romantic, you know, I remember writing letters, you know, and we would look forward and we would say, oh, I received a letter from this lovely lady or from this man. Nowadays, it's instant. And we thought emails was the winner. But our next speaker, Monsieur Alain Chevalier, as you will note, he is bilingual, and he does speak Chinese and Kyrgyzstan as well, I'm told. But it doesn't really matter. It's not the email that people are using. It is the mobile text. So allow me to text in, as Captain Kirk would say, beam him up, Scotty. You have Alain Chevalier. Let's give him a wave, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Alain?
Yes, well, thank you so much, Dr. Lee. Let me see if we can get the cooperation right now with good old technology, and it's not working. Son of a gun.
You've got those multiple screens running again. Chevalier. There you are.
Okay, so you can see my screen. Wonderful. Okay, communication with our clients is and always will be number one. It's the most important thing that we can do is communicate properly with our clients. There's a whole bunch of different ways of doing that. I mean, you can make a phone call, no problem. Talk to a voice box, right? You can send them an email, and at least 1 out of 5 will be read. You can look at texting. Well, why do you want to look at texting? Number one use of phones today is texting. There's also a lot of talk these days about DM, which is direct messaging, which works quite well. The challenge with that one is that both people have to be on the same app and have it open for it to work. And there's I don't know how many different apps that do that. So it makes it tough to use it as a standard. Right now, what we're looking at is that people live on their cell phones. In the world, there's 7.7 billion people. Half of them have a phone. Did you know that in Canada, we just surpassed a 1-to-1 ratio on phones? We have more people than phones. That's gotten the kids and grandmas and the whole bit. That's mind-boggling, mind-boggling. Number one use of phones is SMS, which is text messaging. Now that's number one use. You know that the use of phones is number 7 down the list. So I don't know why they're still called phones, but they are. Now, SMS, which is text messaging, works quite well because 98% of all of them are read. 98%, you got to keep that figure in mind, it's mind-boggling. 90% within 3 minutes. Millennials are 40 times more likely to act via text. 40 times. Now people say, well, millennials, that's really nice. I'm not, well, neither am I. I mean, they look at my gray hair. Doesn't really change because even the older folks, the only difference in figures is 10%. So we're still, all of us are on our phones. If you use it for marketing, you get 19% click-through rate. That's 10 times what email will provide you. It simply works. Right now, 89% of all customers prefer texting to communicate with businesses. 89%. So what do you do with that? Well, you can use texting for all sorts of things. You can use it for alerts, send offers. Why do you send an offer? Well, because it's going to be open 10 times more often than any other way. You can tie it to a loyalty program. You can make your clients aware of certain things. Quick example, I've got a client that have a small Zoominar shop. And unfortunately, they had to shut down because of COVID protocol, happens these days. And so they put a sign on the front door saying, hey, we're closed for the next 2 weeks, see you later. Now, he got a couple of phone calls from his, close friends who are also clients saying, how come you're closed? And he said, well, I put a big sign on the door. And customer said, well, I didn't see the sign. That's ridiculous. Well, yeah, it sort of is. You got to remember too, like what we're dealing with today is that our attention span actually went and beat the goldfish. The goldfish has a 9-second attention span. We beat it, we're down to 8 seconds. We're smarter than the fish, or is it the other way around? Anyway, so what he did, because he had a good system in place with all of his customers, text numbers, he sent them all a text saying, I'm sorry, due to COVID protocols, we have to close the business for 2 weeks. His biggest concern, of course, was when I reopen, it's going to be a nightmare because nobody's going to know and it's going to take forever to get business back up. Well, all we did is send a text the day before, hey, 2 weeks is over, come on back in, we can't wait to see you tomorrow morning. Okay. So when he reopened on that Monday, it was exactly the same as every other Monday. Didn't lose one client. Everybody came back. Why? Because 90% of his clients read the information. Interesting. So yeah, you can tie it into all sorts of stuff. Again, what we're talking about here is communications. I mean, appointment reminders, most dentists use a system like that because they know the cost of lost appointments. And they also know that if they remind you by text, you're going to read it. Okay. You got to remember that 89% of people prefer SMS text, and 98% of them will be read. Now, I put SMS text there because there's two different types of texting. SMS, which is short message service, only 160 characters. MMS, which stands for multi-messaging service, is 1,600 characters, and you can send photos and GIF files and videos up to 300 kilobytes. It's a lot of information that can be sent. But wait, hold it. Remember the goldfish. Too much information for them. The average person will read maybe 200, 250 words per minute. That's 3 words per second. In 8 seconds, that's 24 words. 24 words is 140 to 160 characters. Magic. Same as SMS text. So that's, again, another reason why it works so well is that you capture your people's information right now. You have to know your audience. So the main rules, because I don't have enough time to go through everything, the main rules is, remember, 89% of people prefer texting to any and every other form of communication. 98% of your message will be read, so you're not wasting your time sending them out. Very important. Keep it short. You got to get to know your audience. I hate to say we're getting dumber, but my goodness, if he's smarter than we are, we're okay. Next. 89-98. That's all you need to keep in mind when it comes to texting. When it comes to not just texting, we're talking communication as a whole to your clients. Okay, back to you, Dr. Lee.
Well, thank you very much for that, Alain. So we have a nickname for Alain. He's called the numerologist because he always comes up with so many numbers. But out of those numbers, apart from winning the 649, I think the one you want to remember is 98% of people read text and 89% in terms of the business. Now, we're not here to bludgeon you with information. We're here for you to sift through the information that Paul has put together. He's talking about the holistic sight. Now we're talking about piercing that veil. And one of those strategies is going to be the mobile texting, which Alain has introduced. It's a mere appetizer. As you are all professionals, you do understand we are limited by the amount of time, not only time, but also we consider your individual situation and how Alain and Paul and Tom, everyone included within the team, to look at your particular circumstance and deliver on that. Now, while we all talk about the structure, the texting, one very important story that my grandfather would always tell me, and I think in the words of Tom Cruise, one of the individuals he was dealing with was, he slapped his hand open, he said, "Show me the money." And that is where Tom Bremner, the money man, he will open Sesame and Aladdin's Cave. So Tom has been in the field for many, many years. It's not just the years, it's the quality, the expertise, the finesse, and that personal sense of bonding that is quite unique in this world. Some of you already have experienced that, and for those that you haven't, I know that when you do have that opportunity with Tom, you will know exactly what I'm meaning. So I would like to introduce you, ladies and gentlemen. Show of hands, please. Let's give Tom a very warm welcome. There you are, Tom.
Thank you very much for those kind words, Clinton. I don't know if I'm the money man, but certainly the credit card processing area is an area that I have some knowledge of. So want to look at how customer behaviors have changed a fair bit over the past year. So we're going to briefly discuss taking payments in the new ways that customers seem to prefer now in this new environment, and also how to use data analytics to track those changing habits. Now, data analytics, I know, is kind of a heavy subject. It's something that large businesses have been engaged in for years and years and years and years because they could afford to hire data scientists and the like. Fortunately, the proliferation of smart credit card terminals, we see more and more of them every day moving into the marketplace. I can't think of a single credit card processor that's selling any of the old-fashioned terminals anymore. They've all transitioned to these smart terminals. It really puts that analytic component in the hands of small businesses at a super, super inexpensive and very helpful level. Now, the issue that we run into when we're dealing with these smart terminals, and I'm just going to share my screen here, very, very simply, is that there's too many bloody apps. They're not very well organized at this point because the terminals have only been around for a couple of years. The search engine in them, not particularly helpful in finding, all right, what can I do? Like I have one credit card processor I work with. They have over 300 apps in their app marketplace on their terminal. So basically what we want to do is figure out, all right, where should I focus? Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to cover everything that's on this slide. I'm really just going to pick one thing from the payment acceptance side and one thing from the data analysis side. Okay. Obviously, I'm available to you, and the whole Zettabyte team is, if you have questions or want to ask questions about any of these other aspects. But I'm going to focus not on contactless, because everybody knows about that, not on e-commerce, because that kind of repeats some of what Paul covered, but we're going to go to number 3, card on file. Now, card on file refers to any customers that you have that you're doing repeat business with. So if a customer is not on a set payment cycle with you, you're not selling a membership on a regular payment basis, just somebody who occasionally does business with you. Maybe you're issuing credit to them. If you're a building supplier, for instance, like one of my clients, their credit department processes about $3 million a month in credit card business. And this is what's classified as card on file in my industry. Just means that they're going to take that customer's data, they're going to store it in a place that's secure and that they're not responsible for securing, that the processor handles. And by putting the right information in there and pulling them up, following a couple of pretty simple rules, they're able to access much cheaper credit card processing fees. You get a nice reduction on your costs when you show that these are not one-time buyers, but repeat customers. Just because it's lower risk for the processors, the reason for that. So that's card on file. It can be tremendously helpful to anybody who's doing repeat business. Now, let's jump over to data analysis. All right, I'm going to go right in for number 1. Insights, not raw data. This is the really, really important piece here because, again, who can afford to hire data scientists? What you get with the right apps and the right business management tools is you get a good look at some insights on, all right, when are my top hours for sales? Who are my top salespeople? There's a number of different factors. I'm going to give you just a quick glance here of one of my partner sites. This is the reporting area for one of these services. I love the top 3, the product reports, the employee reports, the revenue reports. These are tremendously helpful. Okay, they're going to show you when to schedule your top people because that's when most of your sales are happening. They're going to tell you basically insights on how to lean out your inventory so that you're not having to spend a bunch of money on warehousing, for instance. If you're in a business that has to have warehousing, you can make it so that everything's just in time delivery, stuff like this. These are the analytics that allow you to do it. So at this point, I could go on and on. I'm not going to. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up at this point, but there will be, again, a Q&A at the end of this hour. So by all means, feel free to pick my brain a little bit later on. I'm going to turn us back over to Clinton and stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, Tom, for that. And once again, I think Tom had mentioned something in terms of the questions. Please, if you have burning questions, I know that the team would very much like to hear from you. So do, type them in, and Paul will be the moderator for that later on. So we've now had the structure itself. We've now had the monitoring. We've now had the importance of how to accept the actual money. But as we all know, there are different sizes of businesses, and it is my pleasure to introduce the next keynote speaker for this afternoon, a gentleman who is not only a man of letters, having achieved his Bachelor's of Science in the Philippines. He has a further educational degree from BCIT, and he has a Master of Technology from the SFU University. That's the educational part. But being a man of letters, he has managed to put together, with his vast experience of many countries, many entities, many different roles, from being an entrepreneur and owner himself to now being part of a huge team. And it's with these different facets that have cut into his character that you will now be able to see the gleam, the brilliance, and the shine. And so allow me to introduce to you Mr. Dexter Ang, who is the channel distributor and person for CISPRO Canada. Could we all give a very warm welcome to Dexter? Thank you very much.
Thanks for that introduction, Clinton. I hope everyone can see my screen when I share it and not the actual, but I did prepare quite an elaborate slide deck. Usually I give these keynotes in an hour segments, but I've been told to cut it down to 20 minutes, so I will talk really fast. But basically wanted to go over digital transformation and what that means in terms of just taking a look at what it is and how to practically engage with it. We get a lot of three-letter acronyms, or TLAs, if you're going for the three-letter acronym side of it, when you talk about technology. But how can I take that and apply it to my business, right? And that's what we're trying to drill down on today. And I do have about 5 points that I want to tackle really briefly as it approaches how people feel about technology, how people look at it, how people speak to it, and more importantly, how it speaks back to you in terms of feedback, and just some of the conclusions and next step that's surrounding digital transformation and how it affects industry currently. So according to a 2019 Minjutra study on enterprise solutions, when posed with certain number of questions such as technology and technology focus on where we're going towards the future, you can see that a lot of people agree that technology is the way forward. It's essential to survival. It gives us great competitive advantages as it pertains to our business and doing business. But really, only 39% of the surveyed respondents know or where to begin, where to start, right? And of that 39%, is it qualified? Okay, we need to buy something. I don't know what it is, but we just need to get it, right? You'll find that more than half the population, 60% of them actually, don't know where to start, or just have a very meh approach to technology. And the problem here is you don't know what you don't know, which is 37% of the respondents. And just 23% of respondents go, yeah, I totally have no idea. I'm not even at the stage where I'm meh about the whole thing, right? So taking a look at just some of the terms that are thrown out there in industry: microservices, SaaS, IoT, big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, ML, AI. Only only a little bit of a segment in terms of the population surveyed were aware of or know what it is that has to do with these technologies. Majority of the population don't know or are unsure of the value and how it connects to their business, right? You can go, oh yeah, natural language processing, big data, sure, but okay, how does that help me manufacture widget A? Or how does that help me move forward to from A to B kind of thing, right? No one has a clear picture, and hopefully this will clarify it. So Justin Trudeau said something very interesting during his 2018 conference in Davos, where he mentioned the pace of change has never been this fast, yet will never be this slow again, because we're seeing rapid evolution when it comes to technology, and sometimes we can't even keep up with it. And that's the issue, right? There's so many changes that have been happening in the industry, and you don't know whether, okay, if I buy X, will tomorrow be a different story where I need another thing, right? Or this is better than what I just bought yesterday, so might as well hold off on my purchase till then, right? The issue here in our perception has never been about the technology, but it's about the speed at which you're transacting information. And this is from a Microsoft blog where it says that the information that flows inside your company is supposed to be as fast as it is going from outside your company. Because if the information flows at different speeds, it may be that if the outside flows faster, a competitor might be in there. Or if it flows faster inside your company, then that means you're lagging and you will have very unsatisfied employees, or you will have unsatisfied internal customers as well. And really, when you're taking a look at what's driving change from this standpoint, it's really an equilibrium between the customers saying, yes, we need to drive higher change from you, and your competition as well that's driving the change. So it's about an equal force externally and internally saying, yes, you need to advance the speed of information that you're processing or be better in terms of that information. And we can speed process this information in a number of different ways, such as, first of all, the experience, what you're looking at on the screen. And when attracting talent these days, it's the younger folk, the millennials, who are looking to go to a company that has systems that can support the way they're more comfortable with transacting and doing business. So I'll give you a great example of that is, take a look at a screen like this, for example. Very familiar. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this screen, or maybe you're still currently using your manufacturing systems with screens that look just like this, right? And I agree, it's dated, it's old, but hey, if it works, it works, right? But wouldn't it be better to be presented with information that's a little bit quicker to digest, such as something like this, for example, where, okay, yeah, this clearly says if I click this, I will go to there, right? So it's cleaner, it's easier to view. You'll see the numbers, you'll see the data right in front of you, and you can access the information very quickly. So that's the evolution and the change in terms of how people see the system and how they can take in the information from there. And that's really where it's going. In terms of interactions where people speak to the system, there's many different ways to do that now. A really cool one that's currently being developed and is not really prominent in the market these days are connected services, where everything is interconnected and you can basically interact with systems on your preferred device or your preferred method of connection. So what I mean by that is, for example, I'm very comfortable with Twitter, right? How do I transact with my business system such that it can provide me a Twitter interface? And this is a great example of that. This is internally what we call Syspro Harmony, where it views your system information or the information inside the system within the company as things that may interest you, sales, withdrawals from the bank, deposits, or simply something recent that's happened, and you're able to click on follow when you want to follow an activity, and it feeds right into your news feed in the center. And the artificial intelligence and machine learning components are operating in the background, and we'll speak more of that. But there's what you call mood mapping or sentiment detection that's included in there, where when you add a new supplier, maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, we don't know, but green is generally yes, we're doing really well in this area, and red means we're doing poorly on several areas, and there's some activities within the system that looks like it's currently trending if you look at the lower right. So sales, for example, is trending. We're selling a lot these days, or we're having a lot of activities as it pertains to customers or stocks, for example. That's something that you can take a look at while still digesting information from a Twitter-like interface. And that's something that's really interesting. It's more the convergence of existing technology with social media and melding it into business systems. We also have something like natural language processing. So bots, for example, where you can add a bot or a digital citizen to your teams, and you can just chat with your system internally and go, hey, how much stock do I have for an A200? Or, hey, I want to sell an A200 to a specific customer, and it'll just create the sales order as opposed to having to key in multiple fields. It'll just do it for you with natural language processing. So again, that is how you would talk to the system, how interaction is being done these days, which is really interesting. It's a convergence of technology that you can actually access and apply to your business. Taking a look at the Internet of Things, for example, having this one as an example, which is a temperature and humidity sensor inside a refrigeration unit. It reports the temperature and humidity. And this is an actual case study that we have internally where we have certain reports and a number of IoT devices across those refrigeration units. And what that entails is we have a temperature spike on a report, which meant that either the condenser inside the refrigeration unit got broken, or maybe the delivery guy, in this case, it was the delivery guy who left the refrigeration unit open, and thus the temperature was spiking and the humidity was going up. And pretty much your system already informs you that, hey, something is physically going on with this specific unit. You might want to take a look at this because this is important. Right? So it's a way of viewing the information such that the system is reporting it to you. So for the feedback method of this is we're seeing an evolution with the way, and this segues nicely into what I was saying is we have different methods in which the computer systems and various systems and technology now speaks to you. In the old days, we had reports. You output a report on your printer. It's on a feeder sheet, and you read the reports and you interpret. Nowadays, the convergence of that is, okay, here's the information. Can I put this in charts, graphs? Can I do it in a data warehouse where I can slice and dice the information such that I know if, for example, if it rains outside, coincidentally, I sell a lot of umbrellas, or during the rainy season in September, I just happen to sell a lot more umbrellas than I normally do during the dry months, right? So that is business intelligence, where we have the next evolution, which is artificial intelligence. It is the system taking all of this seasonal data, taking all of the history and all of the information and doing the analysis for you and giving you the information that's already been digested and learned by the system. What do I mean by that? There's three types of artificial intelligence that I'll cover right now. First of all is prediction, using historical data to predict the future and make recommendations, for example. Taking a look at the actual data, number of days a purchase order will be late based on history, for example. What is the profitability of a stock code? It's low, medium, high, analyzing the data from there, or what is the percentage chance a purchase order will be late? So it's 0.47% of a chance. There's also seasonal purchases, as I mentioned. Usually for summers, we sell a lot of bikes. Or past behaviors. This customer has a bad history of not paying his credit cards. So, you can see that, and the artificial intelligence has taken a look at the history and is telling you, maybe just letting you know this customer may not be the best when it comes to credit. Cross-sell and upsell opportunities in terms of what you see in Amazon, for example, when you order something. So customer who have bought bicycle usually buys helmets and pumps too, right? So that's something that you see that's being used daily today. In terms of confidence, it's just the likelihood of an event that will occur, for example. So I have a report on the left and artificial intelligence on the right. And what that says on the left is data that is true and current versus a prediction of, based on what the true and current data is, what can I infer from that? So an example is data that displays on the day, that delivery is late versus what is the percentage chance that this will be late, right? And analyzing the history that's moving back from that. And of course, anomaly detection, it's just, daily we average about $1,000 and we do 10 orders, so that's $10,000, right? Well, on Wednesday, we had a $100,000 sale. What? That came out of nowhere because my daily total is usually 100K, right? System doesn't tell you it's wrong. It's just saying it's an anomaly. We've detected an anomaly, and that could be due to unusually large sales or human error. Someone butterfingers the keyboard, or someone's trying to pull a fast one on you. And that is fraud detection, which the credit card industry has been using for many, many years now. So, this is anomaly detection that is applicable to certain business as it pertains to artificial intelligence. And of course, computer vision, the June smart oven is the one that, is retail available today, where you just put your steak in and it recognizes that it's a steak and it'll tell you the temperature in which you'll cook it. This one, as it pertains to manufacturing, is just you put a motherboard on there, for example, and it tells you, okay, is the soldering done? You need to QC this, maybe there's a burnt integrated circuit, something like that. And the artificial intelligence recognizes what it's supposed to look like and infer from there. So I'd like to leave you guys with a really quick anecdote on just systems in general, right? It's generally what you have today, if it's dated, doesn't really, it might have or it might not have kept pace with technology. But unless you are truly connected or truly updated business, you are likely to be disrupted rather than be the disruptor. So with that, I hand it back over to our moderator. Thank you.
Everyone, could we just put our hands up? I think that was a brilliant, illuminating, incisive, and insightful presentation, Dexter. My background began as an accountant and as an auditor. And it's through that experience working as a CA and then moving on and reading for my MBA in finance, and finally with a PhD in cultural diversity and organizational behavior, that I was working with Oracle, another ERP provider. And being on the other side, I was involved with the Cognos business intelligence. So I'm fully aware of how important what you have let many of us here know today. But I think what you've done is you've really opened it out in a very simplified manner that many people can now become more cognizant of what is required there. So truly, that was a brilliant short term. I'd love to be able to listen to your full-on presentation next time. So again, ladies and gentlemen, you have now heard from the Zettabyte team Paul spoke about the infrastructure. Alan spoke about that piercing text mobility strategy. Tom spoke about let's get the money in. And Dexter has given you a totally new perspective. Now, I see these as all being the ingredients. So ladies and gentlemen, whether we are having a dinner or whether we're preparing a meal for our family and loved ones or going on a vacation, you have to have a plan. And that's where I come in. So if I can perhaps share my screen. Paul, am I in there?
I don't see it yet.
Okay, because I'm asking to share my screen there. Okay, can you see that?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. All right. So my name's Dr. Clinton Lee, and I've mentioned a bit about my background in terms of being a numbers man first, and then moving on to the MBA in finance and having a DBA as well. So today, my section that I was going to talk to you about was strategy. And going back to the topic, new sales tools for new customer behavior. There's an enormous amount of information here, and this is called Porter's 5 Forces. It's one of the models that we use when we structure a plan. Then this is the moderated version. And as any business, if you were to look, you have many rivalries within the business that you're in right now. You need to consider what is the threat of new entrants coming into this existing industry. Are there substitutes? So for example, let's just use a Coca-Cola. Are there new entrants? Yeah, it's pretty easy to get new entrants into the field. You've got Pepsi, you've got water, you've got anything that's liquid. The threat of substitutes is huge, but is it the bargaining power of suppliers or buyers? So it really depends. And these will change according to circumstance, and it will also change. Could someone just put themselves on mute? There's noise in the background, please. Thank you. So we have what we call the bargaining power of suppliers and the bargaining power of buyers. This changes with the economy, and it changes with the supply and the changes within the industry. The other area that I wanted to look at was what we call the economic diamond. Again, with all this information that we go through, when we look at your business, we would consider all these factors. But for the points of the presentation, we're only going to look at these 5 points. So if I was going to put them together, with the diamond, we look at the arena. What is the field that you're in? We talk about the staging. Dexter was mentioning, how do you get that message across? Alan was mentioning, what do you do? We look at the vehicles that we're going to use. And then we also look at the unique selling proposition. Now, from what Dexter had shown me, I like the idea of this one where you called it, you communicate with the bot. Is that right, Dexter? So that I think is quite a phenomenal upgrade, where this is really like an assistant to yourself. And all of this is encompassed within the economic logic. Now, if you take these 5 and you put them into this particular model, this is how we start. So once we are able to identify the strategy that relates to your particular company, then all the other heads of department, they will bring all their particular skills to ensure that you have a cohesive plan and that your business, as Dexter has pointed out, your outside information is moving as fast as your inside information, because if not, you are doomed to failure. So the points that I brought up was the Porter's 5 forces, the Hambrick and Fredrickson's IT diamond, and on behalf of the entire Zettabyte team and myself, we would like very much to be your team, to bring your vision. And Mammy, I couldn't have said it better. And thank you for advertising that manifestation of dream. We'd like to make your dream become real. And a huge, huge thank you to Dexter for your brilliant presentation, which really was illuminating and brought together everything that we put together for this Zoom session. So right now, I'm going to hand over to Paul, who I hope you've got a whole list of questions from our participants. So we'll take it from there. And as for the Zoom audience and also for the Zettabyte team, let's see if we can engage in some really productive and cohesive engagement. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, thank you very much. There are a few questions here. The first one to follow up on Dexter's very informative presentation. The question is, what separates an average ERP system from an outstanding one? And perhaps if you could, just for those participants that might not be aware of what that is, if you could just define ERP for us.
Yeah, so ERP is really the one source of the truth for your organization. You may currently have many disparate systems that you're using on different facets or different departments. And the issue with having different pieces of software or tools running those different departments is that they don't talk to each other, and it leads to a very siloed approach, or it slows down the inflows of information from within your company, and thus slowing down the entire in and out of information, right? So an ERP system unifies that by having one piece of software or one source of the truth that all of the departments speak to, from finance to distribution to manufacturing to project management and everything else in between. So it is your master system. Personally, I think that all ERP systems are, these days there are hundreds of them that are available to choose from. Really depends on how your business operates, because each business is unique, but does follow the same sort of best practices when it comes to the industry. There are systems that cater to about 80–90% of what you need, but it's the extra 5% as it pertains to your specific industry or practice that really gets it above the line, right? And what makes a great ERP is really dependent on the best fit for your company. So when you're taking a look at, for example, I'm in manufacturing, then we should be taking a look at our current processes, what we do, and then stretching it out to the capabilities of the ERP system, plus the ecosystem surrounding it and the people you want to work with. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how great the system is, if the people are not willing to engage, and the people from the other side, from the ERP implementation side as well, are not willing to engage, then you're not going to find very much success in that. So it's more about fit. It's almost like a review of sorts, an employee review.
Right. Okay.
I did get another question as well about helping to assess selecting between a couple of choices for different systems. And this just pertains to that, is it really depends on your unique processes, and it depends on how you guys work. Because, at the end of the day, when you engage with a partner, not as a supplier customer relationship, but more of as a business partner to help you both succeed, who are you comfortable in engaging with, and who is your trusted advisor in that role? And really, that's what it boils down to, is taking a look at who you trust and what that looks like from your perspective.
So it's about finding the right fit for your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. The next one is for myself, and the question is who qualifies? So the question is who qualifies for BC's web store grant money. So for those of you who may not know, there is a BC, British Columbia government launch online grant program where they have allocated $42 million for BC businesses to create or improve their online store. But you must meet the requirements, and among these requirements are that, of course, you must be a BC-based business, have between 1 and 149 employees on payroll, and also 30,000, at least 30,000 in revenue for the most recent tax year for which a return was filed. And so,
yes.
So if
either or of the 2 preceding years,
2019 or 2020, whichever was the most recently filed tax year. So if anybody thinks they may qualify, know somebody else that may qualify for this grant money, which supplies funds for you to be able to create the store, also for digital customer acquisition or online promotions, online advertising, and staff training. So those are the 3 components that you get money for. And we would be happy to answer any further questions about that if you think that you may qualify. The next question here for Tom. What is the single best thing that I can do to reduce my credit card processing fees?
Oh, wow. Okay. Credit card processing fees. Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind. I would say the top of my list would be to join a professional association that has a group credit card processing plan. That's the simplest thing. So obviously, like Dexter said, it's about fit. You want to pick a professional association that obviously applies to your industry. Also that, has a pretty good reputation, and it's worth spending a little money for a membership. The prices can really range. I work with a whole ton of different professional associations. You've got inexpensive ones, you've got high cost ones. They usually have a good reason for where they've set their price. So choosing a credit card processing group rate plan really comes down to the fact that there are only 6 credit card processors operating in Canada. Well, tier 1 processors. I'm leaving out the aggregators like Stripe and Square and those types of outfits because they're kind of a separate group. Of the 6 major credit card processors in Canada, nobody's undercutting anybody else. Nobody's going after market share. Nobody's being aggressive with their pricing. They're all pretty much in lockstep. So one of the only ways to get a deal out of them is to either be really big yourself or join a group. And that's why I'm suggesting that a professional association is a good idea if credit card processing fees are a concern at all. Did I see your hand up, Larry?
No, Larry was waving goodbye.
Larry was waving goodbye. Okay. All right. So I think, yeah, that's going to be top of my list.
Thank you very much, Tom. Elaine, you've been quiet for a while, so it's you're up. My dentist, is the question, has been texting me appointment reminders for years. What other industries do you see high adoption from?
Yeah, how much time have I got?
Less than a minute, buddy.
Well, dentists are quite interesting because they were one of the first ones to actually realize the value of appointment reminders. They've always used appointment reminders, but they found, of course, that phone calls didn't work anymore, emails didn't work. So that's when they switched to using text messaging, because again, 98% of all texts are read. So it's worked quite well for them. Okay. As far as what industries I see emerging, Mr. COVID went and screwed everything up for us last year. Well, for us, for the whole world, right? So, and it's also brought a lot of new opportunities where what I found this year is a lot of people are starting to use proper systems like this just on storefronts, whether or not they have a brick and mortar business. Don't need one. You can still use it if you just sell over the internet. It works quite well on that. You know, that there's new systems that were very recently created for the real estate industry. Why? Well, it's one of the few industries that actually benefited tremendously from Mr. COVID. I guess Mr. COVID's got one friend out there. It ain't me, but you know, but again, it did get us to create a whole new system. So that this is a very dynamic business. It's still brand new in Canada. It's only been around roughly 3 years or so in Canada, even though it comes from the States, been there for 16, 17 years. Here, we're still going through the growing pains and going with that. Hey, back to you, Paul.
All right, then. Great. Well, I think that covers just about everything here right now. I'll turn you back to our moderator, Dr. Lee.
All right. Well, I would sincerely like to thank all the participants and attendees for your presence this afternoon. This Zoom meeting would not have been possible without your attendance. So a huge thank you to you from the entire team at Zettabyte. And also a very special thank you to Dexter for such an illuminating presentation that opened up the future world that we can anticipate. And I would like to encourage all the participants, if you need to contact any of us, either individually or as a central point, then Paul will be the contact person, but you have the details for Tom, for Alan, and certainly for Dexter and myself. So if there is no other burning or final questions that anyone would like to share with us, are there any questions before I end this Zoom session? If not, I hope you be safe and please be well. And until we meet again, so sorry to part, happy to meet, and we look forward to meeting again. Thank you very much, everyone.